Project Rhino is an association of like-minded organisations facilitating rhino conservation interventions aimed at eliminating rhino poaching and securing the white and black rhino populations of KwaZulu-Natal. The association is also aware that the poaching of rhino is symptomatic of the overall bigger environmental crisis facing South Africa and its neighbours. What motivates us daily is the dream of both white and black rhino species thriving in KwaZulu-Natal and far beyond, forever free, forever secure from poaching, well managed and protected. We honour their uniqueness as one of the primary icons of Africa's great wilderness areas.
Hey there everyone, I'm Don, Professor Goway, and welcome to the Goway Pro Travel Tale Podcast. Travel far and travel often.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Goway Pro Travel Tales Podcast. For those who've been with us from day one, the very first podcast I sat down to do was with this gentleman we're going to speak to today, Grant Fowles, and he is the Director of Project Rhino. We'll get into what all that means in a moment. But what had happened is Grant was one of our first interviewees back in the day. But unfortunately, the interview we did at the time, the file was corrupted. We never got to use it. So Grant, when was that, Grant? That was how long ago was that?
18 months, I think.
18 months, yeah. Okay. So we're doing a redo, albeit a delayed review on it, or retake, for want of a better term. So again, officially, welcome Grant to the podcast. And as I mentioned, Grant is Director of Project Rhino. So without stating the obvious, what does Project Rhino do or stand for?
Yeah, Don, thank you for having me at Goway, a very old and loyal family in the travel business, downtown Toronto. Project Rhino is a non-profit organization operating out of South Africa, and obviously working in the game reserves, mainly in KwaZulu-Natal, which, for those who do not know, was the origins of most of the white rhino in the world. So Project Rhino facilitates and assists all the game reserves in the province of KwaZulu-Natal and beyond.
Now, is KwaZulu-Natal South Africa, or is that one of the kingdoms within the geographical area of South Africa?
It's one of the kingdoms in the geographical area, yeah.
Right. So does it, this is off the rhino aspect here, does that operate as a independent country within South Africa? Like I've always been curious how because there are two kingdoms within South Africa, correct?
Yeah.
KwaZulu-Natal, and what's the other one?
Well, there's a kingdom of Lesotho, there's a kingdom of Swaziland, but those are independent countries.
They are independent countries.
KwaZulu-Natal is one of the 9 provinces in Southern Africa, or
So
South
it is,
Africa.
right, so it is South Africa, but
Yeah.
also recognized as not independent kingdom, but as a kingdom.
A province only.
A province.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, right.
Yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned white rhino. Now, most people will look at a photo of a rhino and not know whether it's white, black, or otherwise.
Yeah.
So, and you mentioned that KwaZulu-Natal was the area that the white rhino was more abundant, for want of a better term.
Well, it was saved from extinction
Saved from
way
extinction.
back in the 60s because there were very little white rhinos left in the world as they were decimated right throughout Africa post-colonialism.
So what is the difference between a white and a black rhino?
The difference, Don, is pretty simple. The white rhino is a grazer and it stays out in the plains, and the black rhino is a browser and it stays in thicker bush.
Okay.
An easier way to identify that, seeing we're with the legend Moira Smith, and they say when Mrs. Smith shops with her trolley and she's carrying a baby, she puts the baby in the front pouch.
Right.
And with Mrs. Kuzwaya, an African lady, then shops at a shopping center, she beletas her child at the back.
Right, yeah.
Now, a black rhino always has the child at the back, and a white rhino always runs with its baby in the front.
Really?
And nature will never change that. It's just the way that God made them.
Well, that I didn't know. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so white rhino were in major trouble in the 60s in southern Africa. So back to what we just discussed, the difference. It's where they eat, for want of a better term, or graze. Were or are white rhino from the tip of South Africa up to what we would term Eastern Africa? Is it the same for the black? Are they in their own specific areas?
Yeah, so black rhinos occurred in abundance all throughout Africa, but they happened to be poached much more than at that point in time. So the western black rhino, which is West Africa, were completely wiped out.
No, it was.
The eastern black, they're more Kenyan, up Kenya as far as down to sort of Tanzania. They've now revived slowly, and the critically endangered black rhino is Appendix 1, which is critical, and Appendix 2 is white rhino, which are more abundant. So there are more numbers in white rhino at the moment, largely due to South Africa owning 83% of the world's white rhino population.
Right. So there are white rhino in East Africa, though.
There are white rhino now. There were the northern white rhinos in parts of southern Sudan and Congo. And now they bring, well, obviously the revival of the white rhino is happening in Kenya as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but both types of rhino are still on the endangered list, or
Critically endangered is the black,
Okay.
and endangered, which is an Appendix 2 animal, is the white rhino, because they have managed to breed them at a larger alarming rate.
so on the scale of flourishing to endangered, critically is the last step before they're gone.
Yeah, critically there's very few left. Other critically endangered animals or mammals in the world are pangolins and panda bears and polar bears and so on, those sort of things. Yeah.
So does Project Rhino, by its name, I would assume that it only not only, it focuses only on rhino. Do you do any other work outside of the rhino species?
We do a lot of work on every species, on
Oh, okay.
anything to do with wildlife crime.
Oh, okay.
It just so happens to be that the rhinos are the most sought after or most critically, not endangered, but critically poached at the moment. Not more than pangolins, but, not more than any other mammal, but they're the ones that are the flagship species that we need to protect more than others.
Right. And I would also assume that by the nature of the animal itself, a rhino, it's much easier identifiable to the average person when you are looking to call attention to endangered species. If you have a more prominent, well-known, recognized animal, that works in your favor. So you basically, in very crude terms, you can pull money in based on the fact that people know rhinos, but at the same time still be looking after the pangolins and other.
Yeah, well, rhinos are, they're part of our living dinosaurs. I mean, they've been on this earth for over 50 to 60 million years. So I think people, like elephants and maybe lions, they aspire to this massive mammal that looks almost prehistoric, we need them on this planet.
Yeah, for sure. So in what ways does Project Rhino protect rhinos?
So we have various ways of protecting, and remember, we are an umbrella body for many, many reserves. So we would contribute by flying our aircraft. We have several aircraft and pilots that fly over the game reserves every day, patrolling, looking for carcasses, looking for dogs, looking for breakages in the fence. So an air wheel, we call it the Zululand anti-poaching wing, is one of the interventions. The other ones is we facilitate dog handlers, canines. We also have facilitation for equine safaris. We patrol with horses. The other wing that we have is obviously our community engagement is very important. Sustainability and livelihoods of people surrounding the parks. And then a very obvious one is that we've got to look at habitat. So range expansion, the new world for range expansion is more habitat, is basically rewilding. So a certain portion of our energy has to go into more space for these animals, be it through corridors or be it through more land and better interventions.
Yeah, you sort of answered one of my next questions of, you said you're out patrolling in the many forms, from the air, on the ground, on foot, on horseback. So what are you patrolling for? Is it, you've answered one question, obviously one of the reasons they're struggling
Yeah.
or wildlife in general in most countries, particularly in Africa, are struggling, is the encroachment of their habitat.
Yeah.
Human encroachment. So you've answered that question. I would assume, therefore, the most damaging intrusion to their survival is poaching for the horn.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
still remains the biggest issue.
Absolutely, yeah.
So what is the reason that they go after the horn?
Well, that is the conundrum that nobody can really understand, Don. There was a spike there was a beginning of the century, about 2005. There was this myth that rhino horn would cure cancer.
Mm-hmm.
It was previously, it was always at gifting in the days of Yemen and when rhinos were abundant. I mean, horns were taken from rhinos, of dead rhinos, and left in the lodges, and they acted as door stoppers, so the door didn't bang shut,
Right.
And now they have to be guarded and put into bank vaults. That's the crazy thing.
So it's not an ivory situation for the elephants where it's used for decorative carving. It's more supposed medicinal driving factors.
Yeah. The myth is a cancer cure at the moment. There has been sort of aphrodisiac links to it, but that is not even an issue anymore.
Have they done any testing on rhino horn to see if it does have any true medicine, and does it have any medicinal?
It has absolutely no medicinal effects whatsoever.
It's like a toenail, it's like a fingernail, isn't it? From a composition point of view.
Hair, fingernails, toenails, whatever you like to call it, it's keratin.
Yeah.
Effectively, it's worthless,
Right.
But and it's crazy how perception has just overruled this beautiful, iconic animal or mammal.
Yeah, and I guess and I remember asking this question in our original podcast interview was, why don't poachers then just come in, subdue the animal, and take the horn and not kill the animal full on? Because it like a fingernail grows back as well.
Yeah, it does.
And I remember your answer, but could you please answer that question again as to why poachers just don't subdue the animal?
Well, because the poachers would have to use a drug, which they don't have. They haven't got the means of getting the drugs for a start, and some of them have, so it has happened. And, the easiest for them is to use an old weapon of high caliber, shoot the animal, chop the horn off, and let it die, because it can't retaliate. If it was half sedated, it can also retaliate.
Sorry, Con.
Yeah, so retaliation, and the tragedy, Don, is that sometimes they shoot a cow with a small calf, and the calf is irritating the poachers while they're chopping the horn of the mother off.
So they kill the calf.
And they kill the calf or chop the calf up into pieces where it's maimed, and we have to rescue these calves and put them into orphanage with all these cut marks all over them from axes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so it's a cruel world out there, but the money is the driving force behind this thing, and unfortunately, an iconic animal or mammal like a rhinoceros is now just a scapegoat for money laundering.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah.
In what way? How does that work from a money laundering point of view?
Well, all the illegal things in the world right now are weapons, drugs, cocaine, maybe the contraband like sex or cigarettes or anything like that. So those items and wildlife trafficking, whether it be a pet trade or medicinal TCM, which we call traditional Chinese medicine, are all, it's the fourth biggest illicit trade in the world. So we're never going to stop poaching. It's here for us to just make it very difficult. So it's just a fact of life, and people think that it can be done. Technology is helping, and all these things that we're throwing at poaching intervention, but it's never going to go away while the value's there.
Right. And again, I'm not looking to blame a region of the world or a race, but my understanding is that the sought-after market is the Asian market, as in they see the value, be it real or perceived, in the rhino horn, correct?
Yeah.
Right. So it's driven primarily from the Asian market.
That's the demand market.
Right.
But having said that, when we were in Vietnam, they kept on saying, but Africans are killing their own rhino, we're just buying it. We kept on blaming them, but we as Africans or the people, the local people, are actually pulling the trigger. The buyers are the ones in the East,
Right.
and all the steps or the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Two or three of those bottom rungs are in Africa, and the two remaining ones are in Southeast Asia, and maybe one is in a port somewhere between. Doing the deal.
Yeah, well, it might be local Africans pulling the trigger, but they're pulling the trigger due to the demand that's
Absolutely.
placed on it by a foreign market.
Yeah,
And that leads into conversations about local poverty situations and,
Yeah, absolutely.
and that going back to my question of why they don't subdue it. Obviously, shooting an animal and chopping the horn is quick and easy, and they're out of there. And
Yeah.
therefore, from their eyes, it's easy money if they
Yeah.
have the connections to them on sell
Easy
from
money.
there.
Absolutely.
So again, on that note, most of the people who are probably shooting the animals, be it elephant or anything else for that matter, are local Africans of some description.
Yeah.
More than likely, from a poverty point of view, it's again easy money for them. So how do you counter? And there have been lots of successes with, particularly the mountain gorillas, in educating the local community that the protection of the animal in the long term is to the local community's benefit. And you did touch on community interaction earlier on.
Yeah. So, community conservation and the well-being of people surrounding parks is paramount. If we don't give these people ownership of the rhinos, or if we don't give them opportunities, be it for food or for employment, empty stomachs have no ears. They go and get the greed of what they perceive through the fence. And again, a fence is a big barrier. And again, South Africa have got fences. The rest of Africa do not have fences, but they have an imaginary line where you've got communities on one side of the river, perhaps, and the other side, like in Tanzania, there'd be a park and there'd be no barrier. The lions and the cattle can walk through, but that we call a human fence. Effectively, that's a no-go area for both species. And there is human-wildlife conflict in between those two. But, until people are buying in, until they can see a value of an elephant or a rhino or a gorilla, and that comes through tourism, and their livelihoods are protected by whoever, the tour operator, the hotel owner, the whole chain is vital, and impact is very important in community conservation.
So the community sees the benefit in protecting wildlife in general, so the rhino, because tourism increases, which brings money into the community, which then in turn, hopefully, if it's well managed and directed, builds a school, builds hospitals, brings a higher quality of living to the locals, and in turn they now see and understand why keeping animals alive is beneficial to them. I would assume that you have seen success with that model through Project Rhino over the years?
Yes, absolutely. Great amounts of success with leaders in the conservation space. But I have to be very cautious because we're seeing signs of over-tourism in Africa now.
You've gone from one extreme to another, so to speak.
It's very important that the governing body or the conservation authority, wherever country they're working in, whether it be Southern Africa, Tanzania, Kenya, or whatever, that have the right rules in place to prevent over-tourism. And that can be anything from a model of so many beds per hectare, so many Jeeps or Land Rovers. And if you have too many beds for the amount of ecosystem that you have this position where, even the locals now are complaining because they've just been pushing revenue to a state where somebody gets disgruntled over, all sorts of disadvantages instead of advantages. And the swing is very quick,
Right. Have you seen through the employment opportunities that conservation has created, or tourism for that matter, but conservation in particular has created, where you're not only seeing the local community understand the financial benefits of it, but also becoming passionate from a purely personal point of view that, yes, this will have my family secure if I look after it, but I want to protect it because of the animal itself, because of the environment itself. have you seen a broadening of education and awareness by local communities that protecting the environment in general is a positive thing, the right thing to do?
Yeah, Don, I mean, there are hundreds of examples of people that are champions in Africa. But I dare say, with the scale of the problem in the world, hundreds of examples of success is probably not enough.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, there are still people that are being left behind. And, you know, that's because South Africa, still over 40% unemployed, Congo, civil war, you know, you've got problems in Mogadishu, you've got problems in you know, Rwanda with the M23 rebels, for example, even though it's quite a secure country, you know, and then you see other little places like Namibia really getting behind their, you know, their tourism is pushing now. They've got a great tourism model and also looking after rhinos with a community perspective, you know. So I think we're getting there, but we're not transforming fast enough. And that all starts with a 2-year-old, with early childhood development, you know. If we can start there and push our education, even you know, right through to the chiefs and the tribal authorities, we can transform Africa a lot quicker than what is happening at the moment.
Right. Probably a better way of asking my question then was asking you, and you seem to hint that it's happening, is conservation, environmental aspects being taught in schools in general to the next generations coming through, be it white African, be it black Africans?
Yeah, good question, because that's something that is my passion as well. You know, we've had this thing called Rhino Art. We've educated over 750,000 children in schools in the last decade. But that is an organization that we pay for, and, you know, travel agents like Goway have helped us with that to achieve that in the past. But it is not part of the curriculum, other than there's some really good models in Kenya where kids go to parks, you know, on open days and so on. But as part of the curriculum, probably not enough. Again, you know, when we need the needs analysis needs to go more scientific conservation services, maybe a compulsory lesson about anything to do with nature-based solutions,
right,
in classrooms would probably be better.
Again, this is a sweeping question because every country is different throughout Eastern, Southern, or even Western Africa for that matter. But do young people coming through, when they're looking for a career, see tourism as a financially beneficial profession to get in? Like, do they think, like, I could work in a factory, I could do this, or I could be trained as a guide, trained as a conservation, trained as a park ranger, and it's financially a good pathway?
Yeah, good question, because you know, every young child, African child, wants to play on a computer or be a doctor, or be a rocket scientist or something, you know. And there are not enough maybe artisans, welders and plumbers and things like that, because it isn't a sexy business. Conservation or game ranging or trails guiding is starting to change. I can see people watching television now all want to be like that young guy that's a hero. You know, the girls call it cocky fever, where they fall in love with their game ranger, you know. So it is there, but our salaries are still way below that of IT, for example, you know.
Right.
So, and I think there's also room for that, but I can see, you know, there are winds of change.
So on that point, here's a broader question. We're still getting away from the rhino, but I think this encapsulates protection of wildlife.
All part of the picture.
It's all part of the bigger picture. Again, you're based in South Africa, and your organisation's based in South Africa, which you mentioned earlier on.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask this question. I guess you can answer from a South African's point of view, but maybe you have opinions on East and everywhere else. Is the youth of Africa, very broad generalisation there though, as they look to careers in general, is it IT in Africa that drives young men and young women? Is it medicine? Is it science? Like, is conservation, is wildlife, and you are a hotbed of wildlife. It's Africa.
Yeah.
And most people I've met from that area of the world, they grow up with the wildlife. Even if they're in the city, it's still part of their upbringing.
Yeah.
Taking the conservation question out of it altogether, is that side of a career even you sort of answered, is it popular versus getting into being a lawyer, being a doctor, being into IT, being an influencer, all these different career paths now, is wildlife in general and conservation in particular starting to not be sexy anymore?
No, I mean, it's kind of 6 of the one and half a dozen of the other.
Right.
And I would say wildlife tourism, obviously wildlife goes with tourism, but there's still a lean towards IT and doctors and suburban life. There's this the young perception of young people all wanting to go to cities. Obviously, they go to university.
Right.
But I have it on great authority now working, and I'm working in 8 countries in Africa, by the way. So I'm not only...
8 countries? Okay,
Yeah.
okay, again, I want to get back to my question, but so the 8 countries would be South Africa, obviously.
Rwanda, Democratic Republic, Angola, Uganda, Tanzania, and a couple of new emerging ones, that
Not Kenya?
Kenya, not as much as the others,
Okay.
but I am collaborating with the Kenyans. So I do know the models there, and I know a lot of people.
Is that rhino or is that wildlife in general?
Well, Rwanda is people and chimpanzees.
Okay.
DRC is gorillas.
Yep. Okay. So
Uganda
it's a mixture,
is tourism and rhinos. So it's a combination of everything. And I've kind of grown up, and that's where I got to know Goway is through Amakala Game Reserve, our game reserve in the Eastern Cape, where I've been here before to sell tourism.
Right.
Now I'm still selling tourism.
Yeah.
But I'm an advocate for change, for wildlife change.
Okay, so back to my
rewilding.
original question, you can answer on behalf, or you have good insight into multiple countries in Africa.
Absolutely.
So my original question of, is the wildlife side of things from a career point of view, regardless of finance, just from I want to get into something, wildlife falls away or tourism falls away compared to the others, you were saying?
Yeah. No, I think there's a change. There's a move to wildlife. There's a move to tourism away from, other means. But definitely, I would say everybody still wants the blue collar, white collar business and not the khaki color.
But as we both know, as much as tourism, regardless of where you are in the world, can be, to use your term for Africa, khaki, like out in the road seeing the exotic stuff.
Yeah.
As you and I both know, we're sitting in an office here today doing the blue white collar stuff. So there is as much blue white collar stuff in the industry as anywhere else.
Yeah.
That's still not a draw to people?
Yeah, I think it is a draw to people as, wildlife has moved into various aspects of things. I mean, if you look at marketing, it's all IT really.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And if you look at fundraising or it's all basically corporate or philanthropy.
Yeah, and you have to come to those jobs generally, unless you work your way through over the years.
Yeah.
Come through with university marketing degrees, communication degrees, etc. Yeah.
So it's kind of a very difficult one, but I can see where we're leaning to. We need bigger resources, bigger salaries, better pay for people to be drawn in it. We notice in Southern Africa for the rand versus the dollar, a lot of our game rangers are moving into Africa because of the dollar-based economy.
Okay.
Where South Africa is still on a rand, roughly a rand-based economy.
Okay. So they're moving out of South Africa to Eastern or other parts of Africa.
Yeah, the money's better, the rates are higher.
Really?
So the only thing is, obviously, there's a bit of malaria in some places. So younger families tend to
be cautious.
So family-orientated safaris, I'm talking about personnel and people working in safaris, have moved to Southern Africa where they can have a house and a nice school and no malaria, and their wife and kids can go to a nursery school, whereas the young, wild young male or female is happy to live or work remotely.
Work in the bush, literally.
In the bush, in a small...
It was interesting. I was actually speaking to she brought it up out of the blue the other day. We were in South Africa earlier this year. We went to the private game reserve camp, Kapama.
Yeah.
And our guide there, Ian Schmidt, sorry.
Yeah.
Ian Smythe's our account manager here, Ian Schmidt. Amazing man. And as we drove around the private game reserve, we drove past this particular spot and said, "Oh, that's where I live. That's my house." And it was literally in the middle of the game reserve, but nowhere. And like little fence, because obviously wildlife for cruising, and he has two young boys, and they go to school outside of the game reserve in the nearby town.
Woodspread,
Yeah, Woodspread. Anyway, it was just the sort of to your point that he loved being bush, as we say in Australia, and as say in South Africa, being bush in the middle of nowhere, but still having access to all the amenities for education, stuff like that. And he was an amazing guide. He went out there, private guiding, it's the way to go.
Well, quality of life in what we're doing is, you can't beat it.
Well, again, back to our original question, you have to want that and live it, because that's quite an interesting way to live. I love it. I'm be all for it if I was educated the way Ian was in regards to the wildlife around him.
Yeah.
But if you're into it, then it's perfect environment to bring your kids up in as well.
Yeah.
Anyway, so what are the practical? Now you mentioned patrolling. So from a real life situation, let's say one of your patrols come across poachers at night. And that's normally when it happened, I would assume.
Yeah.
Come across poachers stalking a rhino, about to attack it in the middle of, sadly, maybe the kill. What do you do? What can you do legally there and then after the fact?
Yeah.
Like, talk us through like a real life situation.
A real life situation. So firstly, Don, the real life, our work is to beat them to the horn. So if there is intelligence, cameras, information, that all has to be distributed amongst those that are role players, from the police, the helicopter, the anti-poaching units, the stopper blocks. So all that gets put into place. It's vital that we beat them to the horn. Once the shot goes off and there's a victim, then there's a whole other conundrum that you've got to do. You have to set the dogs out. You've got to find the carcass, direction of the shot, where the fence was broken. You've got to put the dog on the lead, and then obviously the stopper blocks and all the car roadblocks are set up in the area based on cameras. So cameras and technology, we put drones up, we put the aircraft into the sky.
So it's a serious operation when something happens. You don't just send a person out, you're sending multiple arms of your organization out to
multiple arms, and you've got 20 minutes, roughly 20 minutes before the horn is on a road, and that road is now hopefully blocked or cameraed. So you flag the number plate. In some instances, you know where the break in the fence is. There's some blood which the dog is following. The dogs are on the spoor. If it's not too hot, if it's the sun, then you need numerous dogs, because they can only do about 8 Ks or 8 minutes or whatever, and then they're tired. So we put another dog on. Then once it's in a vehicle, then you've got a problem. Then the next stopper group has to open that vehicle, stop all the cars, check it, and get the other dog, which is now a sniffer dog, to sniff out weapons, horn, blood, and so on. And all that has to happen with a policeman in presence. You can apprehend, but you can't arrest.
Right.
So those are the other constraints that we have in this whole thing. Then you've got to find the bullet or the carcass. So a vet has to come out. So it becomes a crime scene. You cordon the thing off, and the more you tamper with the crime scene, the less your chance of you got of not of arresting, of prosecution. So prosecution, then there's a docket opened, and the prosecution goes through a whole process of very, very deep intelligence. Is there a cigarette butt? Is there a cartridge? Is the cartridge matching to other crimes?
So like a human murder crime.
It's a human. It's exactly like a human murder crime. And then obviously DNA is taken from the carcass, and DNA is taken from the horn, if you find the horn, and the weapon is matched to that, and then you've got a decent case.
Wow.
That's happening every week.
Every week, something like this.
Or once a month, hopefully every week. But and there's syndicates, and the syndicates are known. And we're also doing lifestyle audits at the moment. So people that are fingered are getting audited by proper subpoenas.
Oh, okay.
So is there money going to the bank? Is it a cash transaction? Who's being paid? They triangulate all the phone calls and so on.
Yeah, so like the protection of the rhino, it's multi-layered, as is the killing of, and then the distribution of. It's multi-layered in respect to how it's investigated.
Yeah. And then you open the bonnet, and then you find a rifle in there. You find the horn. Sometimes the horn is underneath the car, strapped on. Sometimes it's between the radiator and the fan, hidden away, and you can't see it,
So if your team came across poachers in the middle of the act, are the poachers likely just to throw their arms up and say, "You got me," or are they likely to be violent?
No, they're going to shoot back.
Yeah, they will shoot back.
And we can't kill them until your life is threatened.
Right, so it's one of those things you can't shoot unless they shoot first type situation.
And
But you do have the authority to fire back and kill if needed.
yeah, if it's protecting your own life.
Right, okay. So it becomes a self-defense.
Generally, we are non-violent NGO, so we don't carry weapons. Even our dog handlers run with a weaponed armed guard that is one of the authorities.
Right. So by that statement, it sounds like there are NGOs that are armed, and
They are.
oh, okay.
So they are security force, basically. So we in a non-violent means. So the guy in the aircraft may have his personal gun. The dog handler may have his personal pistol, but we don't run. His concentration is purely dog.
Not to go out and shoot.
Yeah,
the poachers,
the other
right?
person has to. Having said that, he's the first line. If there's somebody lying in the grass and he gets to the victim first, his life is in danger. So the dog's got to bark. The other guy's got to have his back all the time. So, and we never go out with only two people. They've got to be a team.
Yeah, so back to your original point, the poachers will generally just not throw their arms up. They will fight back, and therefore it's a very serious situation when you're called out.
Yeah, they definitely will fight back. Yeah.
Okay. So, how can? Okay, let me go back to an obvious question as well. Do you, with the rhinos under your protection in your area, do you dehorn them to stop the poaching?
Yes. A big part of our intervention now is dehorning.
Okay.
So remember, there's 10 or 12 or 15 interventions. Some of them may be technology, drones, aircraft, dogs, horses. Dehorning is one of the dozen. There's no silver bullet. Dehorning is dropping the poaching by 70%, and that's official statistics, research, and we can't.
How does that not stop the poaching altogether? Or you're just saying that because there are still rhinos out there who are not dehorned, therefore they're being poached?
They're killing rhinos with no horns on.
For what reason?
Because they cannot see them at night.
Oh, right. They see the outline of a rhino, don't realise it doesn't have a horn.
Yeah, or the length of the horn. We cut the horns off at 4 fingers off the base of the from the nose,
snout,
the snout. So effectively, there's 4 inches or four fingers plus a regrowth, which is an inch a year. So there can be a substantial value there, if you're talking money. And when they cut them off, they don't worry about aesthetics.
Yeah, they
and
just go for
blood vessels and veins. They're just cutting it. So there is a big reason to cut. If they've gone to the trouble of shooting a rhino, they're not going to leave a dehorned rhino. We call it stumpy.
Yeah.
They'll take a stumpy.
They'll take the stump as well. They'll take
something
rather than nothing.
That is the 30% of the 70, which is saying we don't want that one. We'll have a one with a big horn.
Okay, so as we mentioned before, the rhino horn is like a fingernail. So when you do dehorn, obviously it's done under supervision of vets, etc. And I assume they're subdued, but the cutting off itself is not painful in any way.
No.
Just like having your fingernail cut.
Yeah.
Does it affect behaviour? Because I think I remember reading somewhere, well, the horn's there for a reason, and it's like for for young males to not mark territory, but fight for their territory and fight in general.
Yeah.
So by dehorning. Let me ask this a real basic question: male and female have horns.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely.
So they're all going to fight, and they're all going to use it. Do they use horns for digging and no, just really
but sharpening?
Sharpening. Okay.
They sharpen against stumps and ant heaps and things like that.
Right. So losing a horn through organised dehorning, does that affect their behaviour? Does it affect their nature? I guess, for want of a better term.
It does marginally.
Yeah.
Dehorning, our science has told us that dehorning has decreased the age at first calving, for example, because the young female coming into estrus for the first time, cannot defend a male that is coming to mate it, for example. So therefore, she's conceiving a year or two younger. Their home range has decreased a bit, and remember that we cannot dehorn partial. We must dehorn everything,
How do you mean? What do you mean?
or the whole population.
Oh, right. Okay.
So it doesn't really help to only do half the population, and also like painting the Golden Gate Bridge. You know, if you've got 1,000 rhinos in a landscape, it takes you time to finish 1,000 rhinos.
And by the time you finish, you got to start again.
You got to start again, and they're staggered. You know, some have
Yeah.
got stumpies, some have got no horns, some have got 3 years growth.
So, what's the gestation period for a female when she's pregnant?
16 for a white and 15 for a black rhino.
Okay,
And we don't dehorn young calves.
okay,
So already there's now a gap between a calf that's under 4 months or 6 months, because now you've got to dart both animals.
right. And then from the time that a female gives birth, how long before she can or does fall pregnant again for the cycle to continue?
They're calving at about 2.5. If a good cow is calving at about 2.5 years,
Right.
their calf is weanable, after 2 years. Although they stay with their mothers until the day before they have the next calf,
Okay.
which is also a very, very interesting thing to watch if you ever know rhinos like I do, and you can watch the cow getting rid of her previous calf, and she's been living with mom for 2.5 years.
Right.
If you think dropping your kids at school was hard on the first day, this is very, very,
Very brutal.
very brutal, because the calf just won't understand, and she's saying,
Just turns it back.
yeah, and giving her hell and putting the horn under her and picking her up and throwing
Oh, really?
him or her
So
over.
somewhat-
And she's
somewhat violent.
squealing. It's very violent.
Oh, wow.
Until she's got a small calf, she can't defend it anymore. And then the other bull generally comes, and he takes over, and he gives the calf a big hiding.
Oh, okay.
And then that sibling, 2.5 years old,
Yeah, yeah.
goes off miserable and then finds a mate of its own age.
Right.
Generally, that's what happens.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
So the breeding cycle, it's not, I think an elephant's a lot longer than that.
22.
Yeah. So it's not slow, but it's not super fast either. So
Yeah.
if the breeding cycle would not outpace rhino poaching, I guess is what I'm getting at. So they're not going to breed quickly enough to counteract the poaching. It's
No,
slow, yeah,
no, because they're not like cheetah at 105 days.
Yeah, that's what I mean,
where
yeah,
they're
yeah.
dropping, like.
yeah. And as you
cats.
say, that it's not only gestation, it's then 2 years of mothering before the next
Yeah.
calf is on its way. Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, you can see how extinction can spiral into,
Yeah.
as quickly as it can.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I was getting at. Like, yeah, you've got to, not that you'd never want to allow poaching to continue, but it's
Yeah.
not, even if it did, it's not a sustainable model. It will,
Yeah.
the poaching will outstrip
will.
the breeding cycle. Yeah.
So that's the big thing with the demand, the demand versus trade, and we won't even go into that debate because it's a big conundrum.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
if you ask me about it, I'd rather not, but
Okay, fair enough.
you,
Yeah.
you never know how quickly you can go extinct.
Yeah.
You either got too few or too many.
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah.
And if you get it wrong, things can go very wrong.
Very.
At the moment, I would say I'm optimistic, but nobody can relax and say, "Oh, we're now winning
We've
this
done it.
battle."
Yeah, we've won the battle.
And that's why tourism, education, job opportunities, habitat, rewilding, corridors, all the above are as important as any other one.
Right. So, from a funding point of view, can agents out there tell their clients, are there ways other than direct donations, which I'm sure you would accept, are there ways that people can have their money when they travel go towards not only your projects, but projects in general? Tourism in one is money back into a local economy. We've had those conversations before. But as an example, and I remember asking this question the first time we met. I remember seeing years and years ago a company, I can't remember its name, that allowed travelers to assist with things like dehorning. So when your team goes out to dehorn and subdue the animal, they could go along and be like a dog's body and help out.
Yeah.
Do you offer that type of thing? If not, are there other ways that people can be more directly involved with this?
Everyone is doing that now. It's become a major source of revenue, purely because rhinos are very expensive to keep. So we call it philanthropic tourism, behind-the-scenes tourism, support donations and so on. So without that, I think we'd really be struggling. We're losing a lot of smaller parks that aren't effective, that cannot afford security. So it is vital that we keep, we've got another source of income. So one would be bums in beds, the other one would be a conservation levy, the other one would be gift shop, biodiversity credits and so on. But philanthropic arm is now taken over a lot of the tourism.
Right. So through Goway and working with Project Rhino, travellers, if they wish, can partake based on scheduling and everything else like that, of course.
Yeah.
They can partake in hands-on rhino protection. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Travel with a purpose, impact travel where, Goway clients can provide X amount that can be predetermined before they get there. It can be pre-planned. It is very hard to plan an intervention because you've got heat, tornadoes, not so many tornadoes in Africa, but there's extreme weather conditions. And if people are only there for 2 days,
of course.
It's something that we don't like to pre-plan, but we do book interventions, with vets and so on beforehand. You've got to have a helicopter, a vet, an apparatus, which is generally a collar. So it's not only dehorning. It can be a collar, it can be every single rhino needs to have a DNA. So you have to
and medical,
still take the DNA test at some point, whether it's 2 years old or 3 years old, so on.
Yeah, I saw something on TikTok because my feed feeds me a lot of African wildlife stuff. And I'm assuming you'll do the same thing, but I'll use this as an example. I think it was East Africa. An elephant had wandered probably off its reservation. And a local had thrown a spear at it. And then other locals saw the spear in the elephant, made a few phone calls, and then the local organization came out, subdued the elephant, withdrew the spear, patched him up, et cetera, et cetera. I assume if there's a rhino out there that's been hurt just by accident or by human intervention, that's also something you do. You go and fix them up and look after them just from a purely health point of view?
Yeah, an emergency situation. Now, if that situation arose, if you had a Goway traveller in your bed, in your room, it would be lovely to take him or her along, but that is an emergency operation, which you cannot plan for.
Of course, not talking about the plan. I just thought about your organisation also does that type of stuff.
Yeah, we would, if the value was big enough.
Yeah.
If it was an impala or, something smaller, maybe not.
Right, okay, yeah. I was thinking rhino in this case, but you're thinking all animal types.
Definitely rhino, maybe a sable, maybe a giraffe.
So what is the distinguishing line that if an impala's hurt is, in your mind, is that's just nature taking its course, so to speak?
Nature versus value.
Right, okay.
So
because impala are everywhere and not in danger by any means.
No, and we live in a natural world which has to balance. But we also intervene. So in predator terms, we overmanage predators.
Right.
So a predator would be seen as, okay, if the lion is old, let her be killed by
nature, yeah.
But if you were in a smaller reserve, you would want to protect that lion for any other reason. So you would then dart it with a guest or without a guest to intervene in the management process.
Right. You just mentioned there, if the lion was old, you'd let the pride kill it. Is that what happens to an older lion? Are they normally taken out by the pride, or they wander off under a tree and just fall asleep?
Starvation, or another pride would take her out.
Another pride,
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Or he would die of starvation,
right?
Because he cannot hunt anymore.
Oh, okay.
Generally,
right? Okay.
Yeah.
Do you do any works with lions in South Africa?
We do. All our work is connected.
You're right. Yeah.
So if lions were, lion bone trade is a big thing now.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. So and lions in captivity is something that we totally against, because people they call it canned hunting. So
when you say lions in captivity, you're talking like a rich oil sheik with a lion in his backyard, or lions bred in a private reserve to be hunted?
The pet
or
trade,
both.
I don't know if you've seen a lot of these movies, like the lions, all the lion stories where they pet young animals, cubs, with volunteers, and they're cute and so on.
Yeah.
At 3 years old or three months old, they get weaned to 6 months to a year, and then after 5 years, the catalogue goes out and people come and hunt them. So that is something, that we completely
Oh yeah, well,
against. Because
you and us is
you know,
100%.
So anything that's going to subdue or caged or canned, it's part of our wildlife crime basis.
So you're saying in the example you used there, because I just assumed that the trophy hunters would go to reserves like a private game reserve where the wildlife was wild and they have the opportunity to hunt under, I'm doing inverted commas for those who are listening, legal parameters, because I know there are some legalities.
Yeah.
You're allowed to do it. I'm not getting into the rights or wrong of that right now. But you're saying often, or that's my word, at times animals are bred for this. First, it's just a private game reserve with lions on it, which are hunted. You're saying that they're in captivity, hand-reared to eventually be hunted.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And they're kept in smaller
enclosures,
fed. And then when it comes to time to move them, they then move them to larger areas, and they are then shot by certain hunters.
So they're moved to a larger area just to be hunted, because they wouldn't survive for an extended period of time in an open environment, would they?
My sources tell me there's 8,000 lions in semi-captivity or captivity.
Being bred or eventually used for hunting.
In southern Africa alone, South Africa alone.
Okay. So what is the government's opinion on that type of tourism? Because it is a form of tourism. It's trophy hunting. And we've all seen the photos of notable people, or they might have been notable before their picture. They were definitely notable after they published their pictures. Yeah. So what's the government's view on that? Because I know the South African government is very pro, we've got to protect our environment. At the same time, are they justifying it by, well, it's a small amount, it's bringing in good revenues? Is that their position on this?
There's a whole policy procedure that's in review at the moment.
Okay.
So I'm not at liberty to tell you what what that is, but I know there's a big lobby against it.
Mm-hmm.
There are people saying, well, we've got a problem, we cannot change it overnight. Are you saying to us, and these are people that are for hunting the lions, we've got to euthanize 8,000 lions, for example.
Right.
And the Minister of, Tourism, or not the Minister of Tourism, the authorities are saying, well, this is a calamity if this happens. So they have it under review at the moment. Okay. I'm not quite sure where that is. It's called norms and standards for captive breeding animals.
Right. I remember we were actually on our South African trip. I can't remember where we did a lot of flying between. We were on one of the buses that take you from an aircraft to the terminal, because it wasn't at the gate. And there was a gentleman on the bus talking very loudly about how this type of tourism, hunting, was actually good for conservation and all this type of thing. He was very pro, naturally, it's his right.
Yeah.
But as we were all listening, we had no choice but to listen, because he was quite boisterous about it. The people around him all sort of started to move away, because there was a very unspoken vibe of, no, we don't agree with that. But but it was interesting, because I've seen it, heard about it, but I've never actually, even by osmosis in that instance, bumped into a hunter who went out to Africa to hunt. And he was, when we saw him at the baggage carousel, he had all his rifle cases, and it was just like, well, I think we're both on the same page in that respect.
Yeah.
Okay. So, again, if people want to get involved, can they donate directly to Project Rhino? If they're not traveling, they just, hopefully they'll be motivated and inspired by this conversation. They like to give $5, $10, as much as they want. Can they donate directly to your project?
Yeah, absolutely, Don. That's our business, and we properly audited. We're a non-profit in South Africa. Hopefully, we will be one in Canada pretty soon.
Okay.
We also got one in America. So we send out regular newsletters to our donors, and I think we punch well above our weight. And without travel and people like Goway, we would be doomed. We have commercial people that support us, brands in South Africa. Then we have philanthropic people that support us globally, and then some of the big NGOs, like the Tusk or the Nat Geo or the American.
So how long has Goway and Project Rhino been working together?
Started way back with Thompson's.
Thompson's is our local South African supplier. Yep.
Thompson's Tours. It started way back, through Moira and Craig, when Craig was there before he left. Kirsty Perring had a great thing to do with it. So we thanked her, and it was all linked to so much per bed going to conservation on impact.
Yeah. So Goway is looking to strengthen this relationship even more. I think we have announced that we being Goway have restructured our sustainability policies and views and attitudes, and there's some internal changes going on there, and part of that will be strengthening our partnerships with people like Grant from Project Rhino as well. So Goway is going to up our ante, so to speak, up our participation in this, because it's something that's also very dear and near to the owner's heart, Bruce Hodge. He's always about the animals. One of his statements has always been that he used to say there's no one to look after the animals. That has definitely changed. There are many organisations like Grants that will do everything they can to look after the animals. So you can donate directly to Grant. I'll put up some information on the video version of our podcast here for links. Well, actually, can you give for those not looking at the video, a web link or a URL? As
our dear friend Dr. Jane Goodall just recently departed, said the animals don't have a voice, and we become their voice. So, if people are very dedicated to anything with us, Project Rhino, Goway, you can still go to www.projectrhinokzn.org, and you can pledge something. Can be daily, monthly, weekly, annually, once off, and get your benefits in conservation and in revenue returns.
Yep. And as said, Goway in the past has been doing that through our bookings with Project Rhino. It's only going to increase. Again, if you or your clients want to get more involved when you're in South Africa, speak to your Goway destination specialists, and they will communicate with Project Rhino on any scheduled work coming up that you may be able. Again, as Grant says, we don't want to do too much pre-planning because it's very not hit and miss, but it's nature. It happens when it happens.
Yeah.
But make the inquiry. We can look into it. If there's anything scheduled, we can work around that, or the itinerary can be built in such a way to allow for, to use Grant's terminology, to allow for an intervention happening while you're in that particular area of South Africa or Uganda, Rwanda, Angola. Not that we sell Angola at the moment. Where else did you say?
It's coming. I see they're pushing everything.
Yeah, we've been looked at. Angola, a friend of mine who's South African, Garth Gemman, who you probably know through the world of. He's done a few exploratory trips into Angola. We're getting off subject.
And
here,
Zimbabwe.
And Zim's opening up truly again. Anyway, Project Rhino, the URL's up again here if you're watching us. Grant just gave the information. You can donate directly if you want. Speak to your destination specialist if you or your clients want to get more directly involved when in country. Grant, thank you. I've always found these conversations fascinating. I learn something new every day. It's excellent. So thank you for your time today. Everyone out there, thank you for your time. We know how busy you are, and we appreciate you listening in. And we really hope that today opened up. Actually, Grant's fiddling with something on the desk for those watching. And I was going to ask him earlier, and I forgot. What is that, Grant?
Don, this is a talking stick in Zulu traditions. Zulu and Ndebele, wherever you come from in Africa, one of the Nguni tribes, you sit around a fire and you talk about, this gives you the wisdom to fight for a cause and talk with wisdom. It's called Induguzo Phefumla, which means the stick that breathes information and life into the storytelling.
Okay, so for those watching, you can see it. For those listening, it's a sort of 1/3 the size of a walking stick or a cane.
And this is the portable variety.
There are the larger one.
Travel variety.
That's one you can put in the overhead compartments on the plane. Nice.
And you can't kill the
So to have that, is that something that, you could probably buy one of those in the market, I gather.
Yeah.
But it also has a true meaning to the tribes of Southern Africa, at least anyway.
Yeah, Nguni.
So the one you're holding, is that something that you've just picked up for the sake, I don't want to be insulting here, for the sake of it, or is this something that's been gifted to you because of the work you've done? Is it something that a tribal elder has maybe imbued with some, they blessed it, so to speak?
No, this is a red ivory stick,
okay.
And it's not imbued. It's just done many conversations around a fire.
Right. So the stick gets its character by its use, by its stories.
It can be any stick, and
any stick.
I mean, you can
okay.
use it in your elderly age when you're walking around Young Street. Yeah.
Oh, okay. And I can say it's also it's a talking stick as well.
Yeah, and you bought it at a significant place with meaning.
Yeah.
And you've given some story to it.
I like
or
that.
It was given to you by me or a tribal elder who blessed you with some.
I like that. I've just had an idea. Again, this is going to be dated because we're recording this in mid-October. Upcoming is our Africa and Middle East show in Calgary and Vancouver, and we're doing a couple of panels. I might borrow the talking stick idea and pass that around the panel as we're
For
chatting.
Sure.
Yeah, I like that very
if
much.
I wasn't doing a talk in Pebble Beach on Thursday, I would give you this one.
No, that's yours. It's probably had too much history with you and your fantastic stories.
Yeah.
Again, on that note, thank you everyone for your time. Grant, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Don.